Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the ComicBase live stream, and we're starting almost on time. I'm Pete Bickford. I am your host for quite a short show, I think, today, unless there's some stuff that comes up in the chat. Want to thank everyone for being here. Is about to become amazingly clear. We are about to get stupidly busy with things, and so it's going to be hard for me to do these live streams, even harder than it's been lately, for a bit until we get through it. But I did want to take some time today and at least share some news and at least say hi to folks, however briefly. But anyway, I want to thank everyone who's here. Looks like, let's go here. Mike Beam's in the house here. 6 degrees in Vancouver, Washington, overcast. Tyler T is joining us here from Selkirk, New York. Armand, Greg Hecht is in the house, although he's not behind the channel, so I hope you're doing well. Anyway, and Xanadu Comics is also joining us here from Seattle. Chris Prisol checking in. And it says I see you on YouTube, but not on StreamYard. Maybe you're in the wrong studio. Anyway, we're here, so we'll get through the show one way or another. Anyway, so just a couple of brief news items here, and then we might wrap this one up kind of on the short side, unless you guys have questions. So please put at ComicBase TV in the comments so I can see them as they go by. It makes things a lot easier on me. And if people want to talk about stuff, we will talk about stuff. But in the meantime, the big news: we are going to Comic-Con. We're not running a booth this year, but we are actually going to have an official hall presence at the show. We're going to be doing our ComicBase users group meeting. You'll be able to see us in Thursday from 10 to 11 a.m. Over in Marina D Ballroom. It's right next to the convention center. I believe it's the same ballroom that Nerdronic did his panel in last year. Anyway, I'll just read off the blurb as we finally got it into the guidebook. ComicBase creator Pete Bickford will be breaking some huge news about the world's #1 program for managing comic collections and fielding your questions live. Open to all collectors, whether you're using a program to keep track of your comics yet or not. Marina D Ballroom, Marriott Marquis, just steps away from the main entrance of the hall. Please join us over there. We really look forward to seeing you. I'm psyched because it was touch and go as to whether or not we were going to be able to get onto the schedule. You guys probably know, have exhibited at Comic-Con for something like 23 years, and we finally gave it up a few years back because it was very, very expensive and very difficult to get the time, the materials, and everybody down there. And at some point we just did the numbers and we said, wow, it makes so much more sense for us to take the same money that we'd be spending to exhibit at Comic-Con and instead use it to talk to folks directly. And thus began our Not at Comic-Con super sale specials that we've been doing for the last several years. But anyway, I've always tried to make the show whenever I can because it's fantastic to go to the show. As any of you guys who've been there, can undoubtedly testify. But this is the first time in a number of years that we're back to holding our user group meeting there, which is a ton of fun. It's imagine this thing, except live and in person with all y'all. We can see each other's smiling faces face to face. And usually I try to come up with, at this point, quite a big surprise to share with the whole thing, which means that I will generally be sweating absolute bullets between now and then to get all that ready. If you guys remember last time we did the user group meeting, I was absolutely terrified because I think I'd been up for about 2 or 3 nights straight just trying to get the whole show together at once. But hey, let's hope that after, what has been 4.5 years of doing these live streams, hopefully I'll be Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collected at the show. I mean, it could happen. So anyway, we hope you can make it there and have a ongoing thing. Anyone who's on the ComicBase leaderboard, anywhere down the top 200 spots, I might even go to 250 here. If you catch me at the show, I absolutely, drinks are on me. So I will absolutely take you out for a beer. So just corral me when you're feeling thirsty. And I will happy to pay off that one. Thank you to everyone who makes ComicBase happen. So anyway, we will get going on that. All right, let's see what else we have going on here in the chat. Okay, so yes, I have a request, please. If anyone is going to the show, I could use a set of hands to help film, because I'm going to try to make something happen that we have never managed to make happen before, which is to actually, I can't exactly live stream it right from the user group meeting, but I am going to try to at least get it filmed and put up. Now, Comic-Con has gotten very interesting about filming and video and rights and things like that. over the years. It used to be that you were simply in an impenetrable bunker of a concrete building with very, very poor substandard cell service and Wi-Fi that was blown out, throughout the entire area. And so, live streaming was just an impossibility. I mean, best you could hope for is just, whip out your smart camera and live stream when you eventually got past the one cell tower in town that had 150,000 hits going against it at the same time. But nowadays, they're actually making you fill out a filming request form. And I actually have to say, like, which hands are going to be touching cameras and things like that in order to get into the show. So anyway, but I have done that. And they have also got a stipulation there that we're not allowed to stream the content live. We have to delay it 24 hours, even if they give us permission to film. So we will be doing that if we can possibly make this happen. And I'm thinking of various and sundry means that I can go in there with a film crew of one, which is probably me from the podium, trying to make the entire thing go down. But it will be a good time. And I tried to get the editorial folks to come to the show. They unfortunately chickened out, some kind of lame-ass excuse like, oh, my wife's having a baby. So anyway, so Mark will not be able to make this one, but I did try to get him in there, guys. So I appreciate your requests on that one. But anyway, let's see what else we got. Oh, Department of Comics in the house. Welcome. All right. So other things that are going on. So like I said, excited, a little bit terrified when I got told on Monday that they'd approved our panel request, because that means that there's a definitive end date for some of the efforts that, you've probably seen us, dodging out of live streams to say we've been down in the lab working on something. And it means that there's a definitive end date, at which point it would make a hell of a lot of sense to tell you guys about everything we've been doing. Now, this is a bit of a two-ended sword, a double-bladed blade, a Sharpie things on both sides kind of situation, in that it means that I've got something really cool to talk about when I announce it at the show, but it also means that I'm going to have to be a little bit more tight-lipped than usual until then. We're just going to make this kind of a short live stream. So anyway, we will be making the big announcement then, but I'll give you guys a couple of clues on the road over the next couple of weeks. But I'm not going to be spilling too much comic-based news in the meantime. Let's just say that certain things that we've been wanting for a very, very long time, we are going to make happen in a way that maybe you haven't even seen them happen before, and we think you'll be pretty jazzed. So let's see if I manage to pull that one off. All right. Other things are happening with ComicBase and the show and so forth. Notably, Marvel is skipping out on Hall H. Hall H, if you've been to Comic-Con. Now, Comic-Con, by the way, there's comic conventions, and it kind of drives people crazy in the field when they call the local show at the local hotel in town, they call that Comic-Con. There's one Comic-Con. Arguably New York, a little bit counts, but the San Diego Comic-Con it's technically, I think its official name is Comic-Con International at San Diego. It's very grand, but anyway, it draws in something like 150,000 paid admissions over the course of 5 days. Absolutely sells out every hotel room for about 30 miles. It's absolutely insane. There is nothing like it outside of, well, at least not in this country. I hear there's a couple shows over in like France that take over entire towns that are similar, but nothing in my experience comes close to Comic-Con. C2E2, not bad. New York, not bad. But like I say, this is just another world. And so everyone who wants to make an impression anywhere in the pop culture field tries to make it happen at Comic-Con. This is why for the longest period of time, every TV, movie, celebrity, etc., always tries to get that panel discussion with that Comic-Con logo behind them, in the background. And for that matter, I'll probably try to get it in the background myself. I never paid attention to it before, but now it feels like every time I watch the extras on a DVD, it's like there's people like that. It's like, oh, I should have taken more film of myself giving talks over the years. But anyway, we'll be doing it this year. Anyway, so when you're trying to compete in this very crowded space for attention of everything pop culture, everything that's going to be on the new TV seasons, as far as the geek demographic, every toy, every movie, all this stuff. This is the publicity, opportunity of a lifetime. It spills down. It's not just the entire San Diego Convention Center. It takes over the entire downtown area for several blocks. They roll it into the stadiums nearby. They have skyscraper-sized signage all around town. I forget how many bajillions of dollars it's supposed to pump into the local economy with San Diego, but I mean, San Diego would probably collapse as a city if Comic-Con left town. It's psychotic how much this is a thing for them. But anyway, with all that said, stunningly, Marvel's decided, yeah, we're not going to be in Hall H this time. Hall H is I forget how many thousands it seats, but that's the big show. That's the hall where typically, if I've got a brand new movie release and Arnold Schwarzenegger's come to town to pimp it, that's the one where you're going to try to hold the event. And people will go and camp out literally overnight for Hall H. And then even if the panel they want to see is at 3:30 in the afternoon, they will have camped out all night for it, park their butts in a seat in the middle of Hall H all day long, and then finally when their panel rolls around 3:30, then they're happy. But it's one of those crazy times we actually get to get up close and personal, at least as far as you can, in a football-sized hall, football stadium-sized hall, with people who are about to release the kind of pop culture stuff that is absolute legendary, and the events that people talked about they've whipped out in Hall H. It's psychotic. I mean, there was a Supernatural panel one year where they just opened up the curtains and there was Kansas playing, Carry On My Wayward Son, which is kind of like the unofficial theme song of the show. I mean, I think last year you had Robert Downey Jr. revealing that he, one of the people dressed up as Doom was secretly him. And so you live for these big reveals. These are the sorts of things that can absolutely eat up the media schedule for ages. And Marvel's decided, gonna give it a miss this year, which is curious. Anyway, apparently the reason that they've decided to do that is that, as I said, Robert Downey Jr., Avengers Doomsday has been pushed back till 2026. So they feel like they don't have anything to push. Although, curiously, the Marvel Fantastic Four movie is opening like the 26th. It's like right in the middle of Comic-Con. So you think that they've been more jazzed about that. But with that said, even though I personally really kind of dig the retro futuristic, look, it's really a groovy looking film from what you can see from the previews. Early buzz on it is not great. It's some people have thought, is this the return of the MCU again? Is after doing a couple things right with Thunderbolts and such, are we going back to the realm of the indomitable girl boss and all the men just kind of sitting idly by? And unfortunately, there have been a couple of interviews from the stars. I don't know, is it with Disney and their stars of movies? It's like, yes, they have to give insufferable movies tanking your project right before it opens. So, there's been a couple of those. So anyway, it feels like they're pulling back on the publicity efforts. If so, that is a shame. But it is what it is. Other things are happening in the comic world. Diamond, the fallout continues. Let me see if I can switch over to that screen. Let me get my cursor there. And where's my cursor? There's my cursor. Okay, let's pull up some video. No, of course, it's in the wrong place. Okay, terrific. I am prepared as usual. All right. Well, let's see if I can get this to come up. If not, I'm just going to tell you about it. Nope, the computer is not cooperating. All right, fine. It'd be like that. Oh, wait. No, it's back to not cooperating. Anyway, I'm gonna still switch back to that one, and we'll see if we can make this happen. Let's see. So, switching back to the demo machine. Come on, you can do it. Demo. Oh, sweet. Okay, so the switcher's just ignoring me entirely. So, all right, so we're wandering along anyway. So let me see if I can go to my console here. That would be input number 6. Can we get? Nope. There we go. That's the right input. Okay, so sorry, I'm working things manually here. As you might have guessed, there's a bit of behind the scenes stuff that was going on ahead of time to try to make this happen. Anyway, so let me see if I can get back to the article. It was on Comic Speed of all things. Of why is Alliance Comic Distribution hiring Diamond Comics employees? And anyway, this is Heidi McDonald doing some decent reportage, I think is how you're supposed to say it if you're cool. Anyway, so it's Diamond Comics Distribution obviously is no no more. They have been sold out to Universal Distribution and Ad Populum, which is a holding company full of a bunch of usual suspects, NECA toys, Whiz Kids, Kid Robots, etc. Not the sort of people. I like the one Party City and Amscam. If my mom is watching the live stream for some reason, she will recognize Amscam as decorations that you put up in like cafeterias of things that around holidays. When you want to hang up your lucky leprechauns or something like that for St. Patrick's Day, that's Amscam will be the people who will provide that for you. Anyway, so they're buying out. They bought out the resources of Diamond, primarily the toys, but they did pick up a few other interesting bits along the way. But it's a bit of a mess at the moment. Let's just call it what it is. And the real question is, all right, so we picked up the toys, we picked up the trading cards. What's happening with comics? Well, that falls largely to Alliance Distribution. And Alliance Distribution has apparently decided that, oh yeah, it might possibly be helpful for us to, I don't know, pick up some, oh yeah, that's excellent. Let me, can I get that to switch back? Nope. The thing is just going to go nuts on me. This is sweet. I'm having the best time with the switcher today. But they have decided that it might be good if we get some people who actually knew how to distribute some, I don't know, comics in the mix. So they picked up one employee out of the all the people who were at Diamond who actually knows anything about comics distribution. The rest of the folks they picked up largely involved with toy and collectible in-game distribution. So I'm not sure what that means in terms of how much they want to focus on the whole thing. Probably nothing particularly good. But anyway, so that's happening. Other things that are interesting, sort of, in this whole thing, we are starting to see some other publishers falling into the mix. I'm sorry, not publishers, distributors falling into the mix as far as being able to distribute things. A lot of people are going direct. A lot of small distributors are packing it up. There's a publisher called Philbo, which is Philip something or other. I've blanked on his last name just at the moment. Has decided to jump in. He's offering at Arctic Press and a few others a way to get into comic stores. One of the things that's common, unfortunately, amongst most of these ones, I know this is foolish, but I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to try to get this thing to switch back to my camera. Will that happen? Or will it just cycle randomly? Okay, awesomely. It's going to cycle randomly. Okay, let's switch it manually. Here we go. So one of the problems is when you run a comic store, you need to make a certain amount of margin or you just kind of can't keep the lights on. And they've worked out over years of doing the direct market that basically comes down to around 50%. If you're not buying things at comic books at about half the price that you're eventually going to sell them at retail, that you don't have a margin left to pay your employees, keep the lights on, pay for your lovely, poster covered walls and all the other stuff. And unfortunately, by the time you get done paying for lots of small distributors and typically you're buying at a lesser of a discount. So if they're giving you 50%, that's you're lucky at that. But worse is if you are having to also pay your own shipping bills. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a Slack message from Greg. And it's like, this is usually the time when he tells me that, oh yes, you have no audio. So let me just check this one really quickly. No, he's complaining about the StreamYard link. Anyway, so we'll worry about that one later. Okay. This is why we have producers on the show, and God love you, and we'll work this one out next time. Anyway, but if you're not buying, your $5 comic book for $2.50 or less, typically you can't sell enough, you can't clear enough out of the whole thing to really kind of make the whole thing work. And because the distributors are working with smaller numbers of people, you can't group shipping. A typical Antarctic Press comic book, I think when they were doing very, very well on their titles, they were moving like 3,000 copies. It's hard to buy enough product to make the mechanics of the whole thing work. And as a result, a lot of these distributors, it's going to be just very difficult for them, for you to go into your local comic store and say, hey, can I get the latest issue of Ninja High School or something, and have it actually be on the store shelves. What people are doing instead, some people like Slave Labor Graphics, Dan Vado, shout out to, San Jose, my old hometown. By the way, absolutely kind of an absolute superstar of indie comics. He's, as I think was it too tough to kill, too stupid to quit, I think was his motto for the longest time. But anyway, he's decided that he's going to not be in distribution. He's going to he's going to distribute directly to retailers, and God bless, he's trying. And if this was the boom era of things like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, where you could move $300 worth of product and actually score free shipping on it, then you got a shot. But as it is, I think I really suspect that the way of most things in this new era is that a great many things are going to become very local and regional. In other words, outside of the big, really four publishers, maybe five, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, maybe Dynamite or something. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be more and more common for there to be a comic book which is only available in a region, or only available through a certain network, or through a Kickstarter, or because you knew some people, or because you went to a show, which almost brings the small publisher back to almost like the Etsy level of survival. Now, granted, there's going to be some people who manage to make their Kickstarters really fly. It helps if you've got either industry veterans like Chuck Dixon behind you, where you've got a name, you've had decades in comic books, people know who you are, they know what to expect. I think that's going to continue to do pretty well. Eric July is the standout, superstar of the Kickstarter of this thing. I mean, he puts out brand new heroes in a brand new universe, and every comic book he's putting out is moving $1 million worth of product. That is stunning. I mean, major publishers, Marvel and DC, would kill for that kind of thing, especially with characters that they're not Spider-Man, they're not Batman. So that being said, there's a limited number of comic books you can sell when you're selling them for 13 or 30 bucks each with shipping. And it's one of those things where, like, I think it's going to become very clubby for many people, and that can be great. I mean, honestly, it might be what we actually need. We're going to be trading a universal culture for that, in terms of like, and I think if we're honest about it, we've been trading a universal culture, for clubbiness probably since the 90s or the internet came along. I mean, the last TV show you could count on pretty much anyone who was in the club having seen was probably maybe Game of Thrones. Anyone who wasn't, was just a civilian, you'd have to go back to things like, ER or Seinfeld, really get back into the 90s before you had something that like everyone at the company water cooler, if who wasn't like a dedicated geek, was counting on to have seen. But I think what's probably going to happen with comic books, I mean, comic books will survive like any art form, but it very much, outside of a couple of really bigs, the Spider-Mans, the Supermans, the Batmans, and so forth, I think it might, we might get back to where we were before people like Diamond Distribution came along and really gave this big open door to little guys to give them a chance to make it big. I mean, I think it's fairly safe to say that someone like a Robert Kirkman, if Diamond hadn't been there to give Image Comics, universal access to every comic store in the country, would Walking Dead have caught on the way it did? I don't know. I think it's certainly an open question. I don't think it's at all self-evident. Like, no, his transcendent talent would have instantly been recognized no matter where he started. I don't know. There's a lot of great independent work that came out during the 80s and 90s that kind of faded away. I mean, you saw a little bit of it through, it had some limited distribution through some places like, Capital City Distribution, so forth like that, but it never became the universal that we had for decades under Diamond. And so, it's that, say what you want about that Diamond Previews catalog. The thing was a tome, it was a phone book, but it gave an even playing field to everybody. And that was really something remarkable for the self-publishing guys. I think what's going to follow is going to be different. I'm not going to say it's worse. It might be much more intimate. It might be much more like I'm really rooting for that local band that's playing in my my neighborhood, and I'm willing to buy the T-shirt, wear the merch, do all the things to support them, and because they're my cool band. That really might be where we go back to with a lot of this stuff, and I wouldn't really be much surprised about it. I got a note here on the chat says actually Ripaverse numbers are way down. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, their first several projects were just absolutely psychotic blowouts. But there is a problem where you'll buy less things at $30 than you will when they're $4. right? But even then, Marvel and folks like that are basically working with a baseline $5 comic book, and then their specials are going to $8 and $9. That's tough, man, and it's hard to justify that outside of the certain crowd. I mean, I do like being part of a field where it has a universality to it. Where if I talk about Spider-Man, everyone kind of gets what I'm talking about. I liked it even better when I could talk about a plot line in Spider-Man and everyone would get what I talked about. But at least, I mean, you do like being part of a thing. That being said, I don't know. I think we're in for some really interesting times. I will have more thoughts to say on this later on, but I'm not sure if it's entirely bad that what's replacing some of these mass market experiences that we had back in the 90s, 2000s, and so forth, is a much more intimate person-to-person encounter with the things that make you happy in terms of the people you support and so forth. But let's see here. Department of Comics says, I understand why the big two are no longer accepting submissions. They just keep recycling the same bad careers and the editors from people with no experience based on their DEI. Yeah, I mean, and Greg Heck says, when was the last time Marvel or DC accepted submissions? I'm used to the idea that these guys would still have open auditions at Comic-Con. It was one of the ways that when I knew artists and they would have pages in their portfolio, they thought that, hey, I get a chance to actually go to, portfolio review and submit my stuff in there and actually get some poor editor at DC to look at my pages for a couple minutes. And I do know guys who got jobs from that. So it is a real thing that would happen. That being said, the times they're definitely changing. So, like I say, I will have thoughts on this that I will get into much more, but yeah, it'll last for another day. So, one thing I do want to say though is just in terms of that last bit here before we sign off here, because it will be a short show today, is there are some people who are making it big in this kind of little micro market that we seem to be heading toward. Think about people, and I'll just give a couple of recommendations out here. Have a look at, if you don't know him yet, a guy named Dave Kellett. He publishes delightful, and I say delightful in that it puts a smile on my face every dang time I see it. A comic book called Sheldon Comics. So sheldoncomics.com, and he riffs on everything. I mean, he's a great comic guy himself, but he'll riff on everything from English literature to dogs. But definitely, if you don't get his daily strip, do sign up for that. It's absolutely worth doing. This is a guy, he's literally the first guy I see when I hit the hall at Comic-Con, is I'll stop by Dave Kellett's booth and buy whatever the heck he's selling this year. He's just a great guy. And, if you see him at Comic-Con, do look him up as well. Anyway, other people that have also made it big, we've talked about Eric July and the Ripaverse and so forth, but think about, just people who just like Critical Drinker. What the heck is Critical Drinker? And if I can get this thing to transfer it over to the other screen for a second, hey, I got to go. And of course, I lost my close monitor, but we'll let it roll. Critical Drinker is a guy named Will. Oh God, I'm blanking on his last name. Is Will Jordan. He was actually a Scotsman, a professional drinker. Now he basically is playing a character of this drunken Scotsman who reviews movies. In reality, he's a Scotsman who drinks sometimes, who reviews movies quite damned well, but because he does it in a character, he gets away with being quite colorful and creative, the whole thing. But when you look at what he's actually delivering, it's a very tightly focused, humorous take that's really incisive. I mean, he's Siskel and Ebert reviewing pop culture stuff. And when he says that he's worried about the new Fantastic Four movie, I'm like, oh, that does not sound good. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, absolutely treat yourself and give it a go. Millions and millions of followers, and he didn't get them by advertising or anything. He got them the old-fashioned way by just being damned amusing, and that's really going to be the currency of this new era. It's going to be authenticity, as they say. It's the poor schmucks who can't get their ATEM switching panels working because they were installing some update to the macro software 5 minutes before press time and so forth. But it's also going to be people who just again, deliver on the basic thing that people come to the show for. It's like, look, I'm trying to hang out with my peeps. I'm trying to find my tribe, people who like the things I like, who seem to care about those things and are putting some sweat equity into it. I think people really appreciate that in an era where increasingly everything seems prefabricated, formulaic, chat GPT written, AI driven, and so forth. The people you're going to back, the humans that are going to be in your clan are going to be the people who bring themselves to the table. And, I think it actually could be like pretty nice for fandom again. I think the era where a big mass market brand can waltz into the arena and just say, hey, here's a movie star and just take over the place, I think that's really waning. And instead, I think we're almost reverting a bit away from like the industrial scale pop culture that we once had. And that can be good. I hope, like we're going to see, as they say, 1,000 flowers bloom, but, it's, Sturgeon's law, 90% of everything is crap, right? Of course, he didn't say crap. He said something much more punchy. But because you're going to see so many efforts, there's going to be a lot of really great things out there. And if you can find folks with the same taste that you've got and latch onto those, and again, form your own micro groups, I think it can be very rewarding. And honestly, I think it might put back in our lives some of the meaning that's being leached out of it by AI, by increased automation, by the internet, by social media, by all the things that kind of depersonalize us. I think the future of human relationships is very much people talking amongst people who kind of catch each other's vibe. Not so much that you're going to have waves of people who are just trying to ape the latest fashion trend. I mean, there will always be some of that. I mean, there is a certain thing that people get when they're all doing the same synchronized activity. It is literally why dance raves go over big. There's something in the human psyche that, it's dopamine receptors that only get activated when you're doing a synchronized activity with a lot of other people. Why the hell do people do the wave in sports arenas? but because, there is something about, being human that does that. But beyond that, though, the really deep parts that people relate to are the parts where you're vibing with people who are of a type. And finally, in closing, I just say Comic-Con is kind of like the best of both of those worlds, is that you're surrounded by a lot of weirdos that y'all kind of look at them and say, yep, yeah, these are my people. So anyway, I'm looking forward to it. We will tell you more about things in the future. I'm going to say it's going to be a little spotty on the live streams the next couple weeks, but I do hope to catch some of you on those things. I will try to get on ComicBase After Dark going at some point. It will likely be after the show, because, like I say, there's a lot of stuff going on my plate, and I'm trying to make the world rotate right now. So we're going to get that going. Thank you all for showing up at this whole thing. I really appreciate your time. And there are announcements in there. You've heard them before. I'm going to just let them go right now. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. We will see you on the next one. I'm going to see if I can find a way to shut down the show here. Take care. Bye-bye.